All right, welcome to Comfortably Uncomfortable. You've got Sandy and Alex here, and we are here to empower women to choose courage over comfort by getting comfortably uncomfortable. We get real and cut through the bullshit. Are you ready to get a little weird? Because we're going to laugh, sweat, cry, and grow together.
No topic is going to be TMI. Well, maybe for me, but not for Sandy. We complement each other in that way. Okay, so are we ready?
Well, yeah, duh, I am, but are you?
Okay, let's go. The one with the birth, part 2. So, the last episode, we were planning to both share, but got really deep into my story and just kept going.
Love it. Yep, exactly.
And so we're going to flip it and we're going to talk all about Sandy's birth story today for her wonderful little girl.
Yes.
And so interested to hear your experience and similarities, differences. It's always so wild to me. We're all doing the same thing, right? We're bringing a baby at the end of the day. We're bringing a baby into the world.
Mm-hmm.
But the number of ways that it can happen,
every experience,
and things
so
that
unique.
To your point in the last episode, from child to child or birth to birth, right? So let's get into it. I want to hear all about it.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be full or true if I didn't start with how Stella got conceived. And so Stella,
all right, you got to lay into me on this one, so I'm excited.
Yeah, so for me, so my husband and I, we could not have a baby naturally. My husband at the time didn't have sperm, and so he chose to go get checked out, and then there was other procedures that could have been done, and that wasn't the option. So we actually used donor sperm.
Nice.
And it was interesting because it was one of those things where fertility, everyone has journey with fertility, and it's again, just like birth and delivery, fertility and the journey of infertility is just so unique. And I don't know if I was naive or thinking, oh, well, I just need donor sperm. Like that's all that needs to happen. Yeah. So give me that turkey baster. Let's go. Not so much. So the amount of just doctor's appointments and like just I don't know, just not what I pictured. Let's just put it that way. Like just not what I thought conceiving and bringing a baby to this world would be. And so that definitely like affected me because I trained women during pregnancy, postpartum, before I even got pregnant. And so my little soapbox on this one is if you're a fitness professional and you're teaching and you're coaching and you're training people and all of a sudden you get pregnant and you decide, oh, now I know how to train and coach pregnant women. Please don't please educate yourself. Don't just have a baby and say, now I'm an expert in coaching people to have babies. But okay, now I'll step off.
I felt it one way, so that's the way that everyone feels it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if you're gonna do your due diligence, like you, of like get educated. You have your plethora of experience to share, but then also you get educated and you understand that every woman has a different story. I mean, that's the work that needs to be done, and those are the coaches that should be out there training. But so that was definitely an interesting because like I was always a big advocate, of train and work out. I always worked out. And so I had, I think it was my third, like, you go in there to the doctor and they're like, oh, you need to buy this sperm. You never know. On average, it takes about 5 to 7 for one pregnancy tries. And this is IUI. So I'm not doing IVF. And I'm thinking, oh, well, I'm healthy again. It should be easy. Like one try, I should be good. Well, I think it was the second or third. And I was surprised. I was like, oh, I'm pregnant. And because you have all these doctor's appointments, like I knew exactly like when I was pregnant. I knew when they put that sperm in there. I had the blood test. It was confirmed.
More aware than ever. Yeah.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I had a miscarriage. And still like, all the emotional feelings to that was just like, whoa. Like, how is that possible? And like, is it because I was doing fertility? Is it because I worked out too early?
Right.
Like all these things that were going in my head. And I asked all
Yeah.
the questions, and the answers were always no.
You don't.
Like,
Yeah.
sure, maybe, I
Right.
don't know. And like,
Yeah.
this is where I'm like, doctors have the best of intentions, and some will say
Yeah.
don't work out, some will say do work out. And it's like after my procedure, you know, you're sitting there with your legs up, and I'm like, this is so not personal at all. And like, I was alone, and all these emotions. And so when I conceived Stella, you know, I like got quick into this, like, I need to be protective. And so like, I like didn't really exercise and didn't do that. And so like that affected me mentally. And then once I kind of crossed that threshold of like, okay, looks like this pregnancy, you know, but like every little thing, like every little spot of blood or anything, like I'd be like, am I miscarrying? Like this just surge of emotions of just like anything that could happen was just like real. And it affected my work. It affected, you know, I worked at a hospital at the time. It's just like being around people and just like my family. What do I share? What do I not share? Like all this, like, you know, my journey of infertility. Like, do you talk about it? Do you not talk about it? And like, now I'm just like, I am owning my story of like, whether you have opinions or not of how babies should be brought into this world, like keep them to yourself.
Right.
And it should be between you and your partner and how you decide that to be. So,
and it's interesting how like the sensitivity changes too. Like, you know, you asked me like was I working out hard with the twins? And like, there was just a mental block. Like it just seemed too sensitive or like too pressure. You know, I don't know. It just seemed like there was more on the line or something. And I had gone through a miscarriage too before my first, and it just, it's hard. Like each one, it's just like a
and
whole
learning
new.
more about embryology and why, you know, the science background of like why you might miscarry. And it's pretty fascinating of just how, you know, babies are miracles, you know, and how they come and how they develop. It really is just truly a medical miracle. It's a miracle from God, like of just so many things can go wrong.
Right. Totally.
Yet so many things can go right. And so
Yeah.
I got to a place where I was starting to feel more comfortable to like get back into my workout routine, because I was definitely somebody who was safe. I worked out my whole life.
Well, you
so
knew. I mean, if anyone could, like,
and it wasn't like, so like I started gradually like lifting more weight again, and I felt good, and I was benching, and then we had a big move, and so we moved to a new place, and I was starting to get kind of depressed because I was by myself. I was in a new, you know, city or new suburb. And so I decided to, I bless them. I love them. They hired me, you know, I think I was 6 months pregnant. So it's definitely showing.
That's amazing.
At the local YMCA.
Good for them.
Shout out to the downtown YMCA in Wichita. My boss, Brittany, who hired me, she was a rock star, because she was like, no, like, okay, you'll go on maternity leave, but yes, with your, you know, resume, like we want you. And it was great. And it just gave me that sense of community. Like I started reading hypnobirthing, because for me, like I really wanted to give birth without an epidural. I had tonsillectomy, and I woke up in the middle of my surgery. So anesthesia and I have not been
Oh my
friends.
gosh.
So I have kind of a little PTSD from that.
Yeah, I'd say so.
So I was just like, I just don't know what that's like. And you know, I know a little too much about residents and students and doctors, and you know, I just was like, wasn't sure. So I was like, if I can do this hypnobirthing, that's my thing. And I will say, like, shout out to hypnobirthing. I love the way they reframe. Like, you talked a lot about pain, and they talk about, instead of calling it pain, instead of a contraction, it's a surge, and it's embracing your full body to take on that sensation. So, right, instead of pain, it's sensation. So lots of reframing of words that worked for me. A lot of meditating, a lot about like preparing yourself with, you know, music or a playlist or something. It was very much that a mental, emotional game to like prepare me for this. So like I too, like I felt very confident. I felt very scared at the same time, because I was like, and anything could go wrong. I've had, you know,
were you open to having it, like, were you in a hospital, I guess, first of all?
So I was lucky enough to do a birth center. So I have a blood disorder called factor V Leiden. It's hereditary. And I have a higher tendency of getting a blood clot. Now,
Okay.
I loved my doctor because he was like, I've been delivering babies for like 40 plus years. Like, I would want you to put you in the birth center that's connected to the hospital, meaning like if something were to happen, we got you. I advocated for myself of doing a hep lock so that if I needed to be connected, so what that is they stick an IV into your hand, but they don't connect it to anything yet. So like it's just like ready to go in case something happens.
Yep.
So these are all options that I didn't know, but I learned, and I have my best friend's a doula. So like these things she was pregnant as well. She would have been there for my birth, but she was delivering the month later and we didn't live in the same city. So I'm not bitter. Yes, I am. So again, like felt really good. I worked at the Y until I think I was 38 weeks pregnant. And then I was like, all right, it's time to like, I even have stories of somebody not re-racking their 80-pound dumbbell. And I'm like pregnant. Can we just talk about, I gained 80 pounds with one child. Like I was, you could see me miles away. All right. And I look at this guy and I looked down at the weight and I was like, oh no, I got this. So I deadlifted those 80 pounds and I re-racked his dumbbell. I was like, yeah, put your stuff away.
Weights away.
I definitely came and ready, and like same, like I did everything to try and induce labor. It made me laugh so hard. Like the amount of ideas that people come up with and telling me how to induce labor is just so funny. I mean, from eating a cake made with mayonnaise to mowing the lawn to climbing the stairs to having sex to like eating hot Indian food, chili peppers, like so funny. Because just to let you know, I went 11 days past my due date.
Oh
so
no.
I was 41 weeks.
That is brutal.
And my doctor was like, you still look good. Baby looks happy. You're happy. Blood pressure's fine. You don't.
Who's happy?
Like, I was definitely ready for her to come out. But she was not. She was happy as a clam in there. So I start having contractions. I'm like on my ball, doing my thing. And I'm like, whoo, okay. And my mom is a labor and delivery nurse who worked with midwives. And so she's a whole nother story of like, she's delivered how many babies, but when it came to her baby delivering a baby, it's like, she didn't know anything. Like everything went out her ears and she's like, I don't know what's happening. She's like timing my contractions and she's like, Sandy, we need to get you to the hospital. I was like, I don't know. It's still too soon. Like, I'm not sure. Yeah. So I end up baking brownies for the nurses.
Oh my gosh.
Because I'm like, I got to distract myself. Let's do this. And so we end up going and they're like, you're not really dilated that much, but your contractions are pretty close together. So we'll admit you and we'll see what happens in the next like hour or two. Because I was definitely like, they're like, no, your contractions are definitely, you should be more dilated than this. Because I think it was like 2 centimeters. I was like, nothing.
Oh, wow.
It was like nothing. And they're like,
oh my God, I was 2 centimeters dilated for like 3 weeks. I felt like.
Yeah. And so I was like, why are you having such close contractions? And you're like 2 to 3 centimeters.
Right.
Like nothing.
That's crazy.
So I end up, the doctor was like, your contractions are very close together. You're not really dilated. I'm trying to see how effaced and all this stuff. And I recommend Pitocin.
Yeah.
You're here, like it's going to happen because you clearly your contractions. And I was like, but I don't want an epidural. And so I end up getting on Pitocin without an epidural.
Oh.
And I mean, we can talk about that pain, yet sensation. And that's where it's like, I took my glasses off. I'm blind without my glasses. And the first thing I remember doing was signing the paper and saying, if I get an epidural, I want the attending, not a resident, the attending to do it because that's how like, I was like, do not F this up. Like, this is what needs to happen. Yeah. So I signed that piece of paper and then I just like went into my zone. I had my headphones on. I was hypnobirthing and like, it was incredible. Like every contraction, the nurse was like putting up the Pitocin and she's like, you sure? Like looked at me, you sure you don't want your epidural? I was like, don't even tell me. Let's go. And I think I got up to an 8 in Pitocin without an epidural. And the same with you of like, my body started pushing. Yeah. I was not fully dilated. My body started pushing. I was like, they're like, please don't push. I was like, this is my body. I'm telling you, I got into the water, I got on a ball and I loved it. Like that's how I managed my labor. And it was just,
good for you.
Again, husband at the time, rock star, very quiet human being, which probably helped because he's just like, I'm here, you hold my hand.
Yeah.
It was 24 hours without an epidural on Pitocin. And
My
then
God.
my nurse, she looked at me. She's like, honey,
Literally.
I've been advocating for you. You are pushing. You're not ready to push. Here's the deal. Let's get you that epidural. Okay. We're just going to put it in. And then if you don't want more, like you don't have to press the button and get more, like we'll be at your lowest dose. But let's see if that just relaxes some things. And this whole time, monitor on Stella's like, everything's fine.
Oh my gosh. And the whole time, it's just totally fine the whole time. I mean, yeah, you would think like, how much stress can this baby have?
No, totally fine. So come to find out.
The two of you were in sync.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly like the hypnobirthing and the having the playlists. Natam Kaur was my girl. Like,
good for you. I
had my mantra. And so I get on the epidural and then I have to lay flat on my back. And that was for me like, hate this. But it was funny because I became a different woman. Like, I didn't really talk at all. And you guys know I am a talker. I talk all the time. But I was like in the zone, just like taking every surge, every contraction, feeling it, doing it. And so once they put me on the epidural, like 30 minutes in, I was like, hi, y'all want to talk to me now? Cause like, what is this? What is this? And then the funniest thing is they were coming to like, come turn me. And I was like, oh, I got this. And I started moving my feet and they're like, no, you can't move. And I was like, oh, but I can. And they're like, and that's where it clicked of like, yeah, that's why me and anesthesia, like the doses don't work. Like they don't work. And then I was like, oh yeah, I shouldn't move because there's a needle in my spine. And so we helped me move and then they clicked up the Pitocin. And I think I can't remember exactly, but it was like 9, 10, 11, 12. And then come to find out, Stella is, we found out this earlier because that was the worst thing in the world. She was sunny side up.
Yeah.
So she was flipped up. And that was partly why she was not a facing because she was not in the right like position to like push out from the head.
Yeah.
Well, one of the residents said, let me try and flip her. That was probably the worst pain I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
Was having a doctor stick their hand up my vajayjay to try and flip my baby. Well, as soon as they did that, Stella flipped right back and said, excuse me, I want to be right here. Yeah. And I was like, you're not doing that again. So we got my OB on the phone. He's like, no, don't worry about it. If baby's not, if baby's fine, I'll deliver baby how the baby wants to be delivered. And so got ready to push. They were like, oh, wow. Okay. And like gave one push and they're like, yeah, please don't stop. We need doctor come in and do all this. And yeah, I mean, it was like 3 pushes. She was out within getting the epidural and delivering her. I think it was 45 minutes.
Wow.
And so it's weird because it's like, again, the ifs, the shoulds, should I have gotten the epidural before? Should I not? Like, who knows? The answer is who knows? The answer was the fact that she was just always constantly moving her head and like maybe who knows? But she came out, she was almost 10 pounds and she was 98th percentile of the head.
Nice.
So yeah, we have big headed babies and I'll never forget of like, again, me being me, I could feel my legs the whole time. And so like, I think it was just like diluted pain. Like it wasn't as much, but like, they're like, you can still feel that. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So I tried to get up right up. They're like, please don't. Yeah, you had an epidural. Will you stop? And I'm such a mover. And I'm like, but So I'll never forget the day after, because as soon as baby's born, they like stitch you up or whatever. And then 2 things. One, the resident grabbed me and the attending was like, yeah, you just got to sew it like it's a piece of meat. And I was like, excuse me?
Excuse you.
Excuse me? And then 2 was the day after.
Horrifying.
He saw the size of the head and was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense why you ripped as much as you did. And I was like, okay.
Yep.
So like, we'll talk about like pre-birth and afterbirth things that I would recommend or that I've learned. But I've totally learned that like, perineal massage and like helping that tissue open up well in advance prior to going into birth or delivery would probably help so much with the ring of fire, with the burning, with the tearing. So those are things that like, I'm like, okay, I thought I was doing it. Okay. But like when they came in and did that massage for me and I was like, oh damn, no, they were like massaging that to like open that baby.
Open. Yeah.
So But yeah, I mean, all in all, like I went in not wanting to have an epidural. I never thought I would have Pitocin, but I ended up having it. I
Yeah.
think again, you know, it really brought to light of advocating for yourself and, you know, understanding that you can ask questions and knowing that it may not go according to plan and
Right.
that's okay. But at the end of the day, like she was a happy, healthy baby and it was incredible to just see how, yeah, she was delivered sunny side up,
Mm-hmm.
full of
That's wild.
meconium. She had poop all over her, you know, like the placenta was, as my doctor says, ripe because she was, I think she was almost 10 pounds. She was like 9 pounds. I mean, I call her a 10-pound baby because it was so close.
Oh my
So
gosh.
that's my story of just
Women are rock stars. That's
they really
amazing.
I always tease
Good
and I
for
say
you.
after birth we should have the like WWE weightlifting belts of like every woman
Yeah.
should take a picture
Yeah.
with like that championship belt, whether it's C-section, whether it's vaginal birth, because
Yeah.
it's
It's
incredible.
amazing.
Yeah, I heard
Yeah.
a story of one of my professors actually who had triplets, and she ended up having to have a C-section
Wow.
that was or an abdominal like opening from like top to bottom, so like not from side to side pelvis, but from top to bottom
Oh my
to get those
gosh.
babies out. And she's running marathons, and so like she's gotten
Wow.
intervention help with her pelvic floor and with her
Yeah.
abdominal diastasis recti,
Yeah, I'm
like has
sure.
had intervention. But I
Yeah.
think at the end of the day, it's like, you know, making it normalizing every birth story,
Yeah.
every
Every
birth
way. It's a
journey,
good
every
way. Right.
pregnancy is unique and should be honored. Like not talking about miscarriages, not talking about infertility, not talking about
Right.
having twins and not planning it, you know, like
Yep.
I think this is a space to say, hey, let's not have the shame game
Absolutely.
and like talk about your pelvic floor. I have to bring this up because I've had this number one question of people saying like, well, I didn't have a vaginal birth, so my pelvic floor should be fine. I had a
Oh,
C-section. And I say, remember, your baby's on that pelvic floor
for a
before
good
they
long
come out.
time.
Yeah.
A
So
good
like,
long time.
yeah. So like, who knows? Like, your baby boy could have been bouncing on that pelvic floor long before he came out.
Oh, he was. He was.
Right?
Punches down. Lots of punches. Lots. I mean, yeah.
Oh yeah. So
Having
thank you
fun in
for
there.
listening for
Thank
my
you for
journey.
sharing, Sandy.
Yeah, of course. We want to hear about your stories. So reach
Yeah.
out to us. Let us know if you have questions or if you can relate to any of our stories. We love to hear from you. And I
Love to
hope
hear
this
it.
was helpful. Thank you for showing up today. Getting awkward is always more fun with friends. Give us a review, tag us, and share us so we can continue to grow together.
Use hashtag CUPod, letter C, letter U, or tag us. You can find Sandy on Instagram at sweatandshineon and Alex at aj.afterbabyfit on Instagram and afterbabyfit on Facebook and YouTube. We'll see you next time.